In an era obsessed with self-actualization and creating God in our own image, a sovereign, immaterial, and fiercely jealous creator feels deeply offensive. Yet, understanding the true communicable attributes of God reveals the specific nature that human beings were designed to reflect. This chapter from Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology provides the exact academic framework we need to define these communicable attributes. To accurately grasp the traits that God shares with us, we must first completely decouple our thinking from localized, finite, and flawed human experiences. We cannot understand the divine by simply taking human nature and increasing its scale. We have to reconstruct our entire understanding of existence from the ground up. Looking at this text, Grudem separates God's communicable attributes into 5 major categories, beginning here with attributes of being, mental attributes, and moral attributes. Scanning further down reveals attributes of purpose and summary attributes. The breadth of this list shows we are dealing with a vast, multifaceted nature, but there is a built-in theological tension at play. The boundary between these communicable traits we share with God and the incommunicable traits we don't is actually quite porous rather than an absolute rigid wall. Think of it like genetic inheritance versus expression. God shares certain traits with us, but his mode of possessing them is vastly superior and operates completely free of human limitations. This brings us to a crucial integration axiom. We must avoid the error of treating God as a collection of separate parts. He is not 50% love and 50% justice. While we study these spectrums individually, God's personhood remains wholly integrated at all times. Isolating a single attribute to suit modern preferences, like amplifying love while deleting wrath, results in a distorted theological caricature, not an accurate model of reality. So what exactly is God made of? Scripture is clear that he is entirely devoid of flesh, blood, or matter. Consider an architect building a complex system. The creator of that system is not bound by the physical materials used inside of it. When Jesus states in John 4:24 that God is spirit, he establishes that divine existence operates completely outside our physical variables. He is the undefined constant. We instinctively assume spiritual means something ghostly, ethereal, or somehow less real than the physical world we can touch. But imagine a 2-dimensional drawing trying to comprehend a 3-dimensional object. To the flatlander, the sphere seems impossible, yet the sphere is objectively a superior, more real geometry. If God exists as the superior, non-physical reality, how do physical humans interface with him at all? Scripture explains that God has given us spirits in which we worship him and unite with the Lord's own spirit. This shared spiritual nature acts as the interface, the specific internal protocol, allowing our physical hardware to connect with his uncreated essence. God's spirituality is not a lack of material reality. It is a far more dense and excellent kind of existence that actually caused the physical universe to come into being. This excerpt defines the spatial paradox of God's spirituality, stating explicitly that he has no parts or dimensions. We want to assign a size to him, but he is neither infinitely huge nor infinitely small. It functions more like a broadcast signal. The signal isn't stretched thin to cover a geographical area. The entire signal is fully and completely present at every single coordinate. This brings us to the logical tension of his invisibility. Scripture states that no one has ever seen God, yet we read historical accounts where figures like Moses seemingly did. We cannot look directly at his total spiritual essence, just as we cannot stare into the core of the sun. We can only process the safe, visible manifestations that he actively chooses to project into our created reality. When 1 Timothy 1:17 calls God invisible, it isn't describing a lack of existence on his part. It is an asymptote representing the hard limit of human perception. Our physical eyes are simply unequipped to process an infinite, non-spatial being. His invisibility is a logical necessity of his structural nature. This invisibility connects directly to the biblical prohibition against idolatry, as seen here in the text of Exodus 20. We can view this commandment as a strict inequality constraint. The Creator cannot be mathematically equated to any subset of the created universe. Attempting to make a physical image of God is like violently compressing a three-dimensional galaxy into a single 8-bit pixel. It is a massive, insulting reduction of his omniscience. This text highlights another highly contested attribute, divine jealousy. Our modern minds instinctively view this trait as petty, but human jealousy is a fear of losing something we don't actually own. Divine jealousy is the fierce, necessary protection of objective truth. This is the ultimate meritocracy. God seeking his own honor is not an act of arrogance, it is the execution of strict justice. If a medical student took credit for a master surgeon's life-saving procedure, it would be a crime against reality. God alone possesses the precise merit required to tip the scales of existence. God's jealousy is the absolute bedrock of a universe that functions correctly. It ensures reality remains anchored to objective truth rather than human projection. True worship requires us to embrace the tension of these seemingly paradoxical attributes: love, justice, invisibility, and jealousy, all acting in perfect harmony. The most counterintuitive fact in this chapter is that human pride is wrong strictly for a theological reason, not a sociological one. Grudem reveals that pride is actually a form of cosmic plagiarism, taking credit for honor that mathematically belongs to God alone. Instead, we must replace the urge for self-glorification with a conscious, deliberate alignment toward God's exclusive and objective worth. Which of God's communicable attributes do you find the most difficult to imitate in your own life? Does knowing that God's Spirit is more real than physical matter change how you view your daily routines? How does reframing God's jealousy as a protection of objective truth change your view of the Old Testament? Let us know in the comments. If you want to see the complex made clear and move beyond surface-level spirituality, hit subscribe